CitizenCon expectations. For starters, I expect it to be about Star Citizen. Yes. Ooh. Let's start out by just looking at what they've said about this, and then we're going to go into a little bit more detail of what we might expect. We're thrilled to introduce CitizenCon Direct, a special digital Star Citizen showcase bringing the excitement straight to you. This year's event is shaping up to be a 2-hour show, broadcasting live at 7 o'clock UTC on Saturday, October 11th. Like I said, we will be having our own watch party for this, and if you aren't able to make it in there physically, you can always join us. We'll have a group on Discord and a stream going into the physical meeting so that you can still be involved and chat and see what kind of crazy stuff folks are doing in the room. They've got, some stuff that they've endorsed in terms of like meetups and bar citizens that are going on. You'll actually see the San Jose one here. There is a bar citizen afterward. This is about a 20-minute drive, I think, from where we are going to be doing our own physical meet. This is our neck of the woods. You can see me and Mrs. Tomato in the picture back here. So if you do come out to our meetup, you can also join at the Bar Citizen and get drunk that night. We'll be staying overnight in the hotel, so we're going to get lit. Anyways, besides this, there hasn't really been a ton of other information. We can set us expectations. Ooh. We can set our expectations that it will be in 17 days. All right, that's a pretty good one. But let's also go to where Jared gave us a little bit more, set some more expectations in a recent Star Citizen Live. I did get to watch this. Here's what he was saying though about CitizenCon just a couple weeks ago.
CitizenCon Direct, that's crazy. Yeah, it will be longer than CitizenCon Direct. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure, yeah.
Still got some time. So in case folks don't know, CitizenCon Direct is coming. It's on October 11th. It's why I'm here in my office and not on the spaceship. We've set the spaceship up as a permanent filming location for CitizenCon. Why is SCL longer than CitizenCon Direct? Because this just takes me and Benoit. This just takes me and Benoit doing absolutely no prep, absolutely no prior discussion. Just like, hey, you want to chat for like 3 hours about all these things? I'm just going to ask you about a bunch of crap, and you're going to, tell the truth. I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And this is a relatively easy thing. Don't equate length with a difficulty. CitizenCon, even a CitizenCon Direct.
Oh, I see the sing mode. Don't worry, we'll get to that.
Still involves 20, 30 different people all doing
don't know why it's still on
work with all their schedules and stuff like that. And then there's editorial, there's editing it all together because it's like 5 different cameras at 4K each. And then there's all the B-roll creation, which is the same a wonderful dedicated 6-person team that makes all the trailers and all stuff like that. So they got to do that in between the win, and then reviews and reshoots and all that kind of stuff. So don't equate length with quality. Never said those words before. That was for him. He's laughing over there. You can't see him. But I do want to say, if you are some more things about CitizenCon Direct, if you're a subscriber to the Squadron 42 newsletter that went out, that just went out with a map of the Odin system, there was a note at the end there about the Squadron 42 team still being heads down and working on that. I want to second the information there, and I want to star explain. I'm going to star explain the information that was there. There will be no Squadron 42 presence at CitizenCon Direct this year. So just in case there was any kind of people were like, I didn't quite understand the message, or maybe the message wasn't fully clear and whatnot, and if it wasn't, maybe that was on us. That team is heads down. We drew a line in the sand when we said 2026. I don't know if we're going to make it. I just know that we're going to do every single thing possible to make it.
Okay. There's a lot there. Biggest thing though, Squadron 42 won't be at CitizenCon. Now, I didn't expect that. I actually made a video like 4 months ago that's available to supporters right now, and it's supposed to release publicly in November, and it's about Squadron 42, because I was like, oh, Squadron 42 is going to be a big topic by then. It'll be interesting to cover it in that way. But that's not what they're doing. They are focusing entirely on Star Citizen right now. Honestly, I do believe, like, as he's saying, they have a lot of pressure right now to get this done. I don't want to say they're in crunch mode. They're probably in crunch mode, but they're undoubtedly pushing to just get this done. Please. And I say please, that's not me asking please. That's their energy that I'm getting right now. They just want Squadron 42 to please be finished and out the door. I think that's why CitizenCon is less this year. I think that's why Squadron's not going to be at the show this year. If they wanted to show something for Squadron 42, they could. There's plenty of stuff that does work well enough that we've already seen before that they could just show us again. But I think at some point you can't show everything, you know? It's like Chris Roberts is like he's teasing, right? Not just Chris, CIG as a whole. They're teasing. They're lowering the bra a little bit. Huh? They're lifting the shirt a little bit, but you can't show the whole game. An hour, 2 hours of the game maybe, but if you've got 20 hours of story and you show 3 hours of it already, you're missing out on like a good amount of the surprise and hype that people will get from playing the game. So I imagine they don't want to show much of it. Anything that they can show that's feature related, like, oh, these features work in Squadron 42, they can just include that in the Star Citizen section. So no Squadron 42 at CitizenCon. I don't see that really as too much of a big deal, but I did expect some kind of a more advanced release window, at least like a quarter. I don't know, man. The way he says he doesn't know if they're going to make it, that's not to say that like it is up in the air, although it is always up in the air. I don't think he's saying that necessarily because they're worried about it, but I do think he's covering his ass. As like you want to start doing more and more as you get closer to being a real game. There's a lot of stuff they're doing now that seems like they want people to view CIG with more respect, you know, less. They don't want people to think about ship sales and unreleased games when they first think of Star Citizen. And the things that they're doing kind of seem to be pushing towards that. And I think not constantly being wrong about your dates is part of that. But you know what? I can't even really say that because the date's already out there. 2026 is already there. I don't think you're going to get much more egg on your face at this point by doubling down on it. So I would say don't believe that there is not going to be a delay announced. But definitely don't expect Squadron stuff at CitizenCon. And honestly, I would say the features that are in Squadron we could probably still expect to be there that are being worked on. So that being said, what is still being worked on? Easiest way to see that is the monthly reports, to be honest, not the roadmap. And I know all of you already probably have some pretty significant and really understandable expectations and features that might be shown. Engineering is obviously a big one. There's no way that we won't see engineering used in some way. What I think will happen though is I'm expecting a CitizenCon 2021, which was, well, I'm expecting the Life in the Verse. Look at this. This is 2 hours long, right? Now, I don't think this is gonna be exactly what we get this year, but this, you can watch this and get an idea of what they can pack into a 2 hour long presentation. This was basically, here's Pyro. They showed us Pyro space stations, the design intents, the concepts, all that stuff. They showed us the planets, little showcases of the planets themselves, how they were made, all that kind of stuff. They showed us, I think, some space station interiors as well. They really got a lot of the folks from the Montreal squad to come in and talk about their process of making these locations. These are all locations that we play in now. I would say they're not as interesting as some of the things we saw here, but a lot of it is stuff that we saw here. They also gave us a very significant live demo, which showed about 20-minute segment of gameplay in Pyro.
So
beautiful gameplay.
What we ultimately ended up on was something that
kind of like what they had planned for it, how it would change based on the time of day that you went or your approach, whether you were going in as a hostile or as a friendly person who wanted to trade with the shopkeepers and all that stuff.
So
and
with the AI, we want to make sure that it's...
I want to say this. While CIG has gotten a lot better since I'd say around 2018 or so at focusing on the important bits in CitizenCon and not necessarily showing us stuff that's just all wherever it's going to be. This is another example of that period of time still. This still hasn't become a thing in Pyro. You can go to these outposts, but
from strangers, and
there aren't... You don't get the shopkeepers.
There is Dev on the right when we came
And
in.
you still don't really get a sense of going to an outpost and knowing whether or not, I guess you kind of know if it's going to be hostile or not, whether it's headhunters or Citizens for Prosperity. But it still doesn't feel like there's quite the dynamic response. There's not really a big sense of ongoing townsmanship. You might be able to find something like this somewhere in Pyro, but it's definitely not common. You're not going to find shopkeepers at outposts that you can talk to. You're not going to find artifacts that you can steal from said shops. And a lot of the time, I generally don't think that if you attack, it might be if you attack people at the base, like Citizens for Prosperity. I don't know if the turrets automatically start targeting you. They might. But this was a whole showcase of basically the gameplay that they wanted to have in Pyro. The idea of you go into these frontier outposts and you get to decide whether or not it's a friendly place, a hostile place, if you're going to do business, if you're just going to steal, if you're going to explore, whatever it might be.
So what we
A lot of this is in the game, but it doesn't necessarily play out like this
stealthy routes versus if you were with
as much as I would want, given this is the showcase that they gave us in 21. Being able to sneak into an outpost like this, I think you could do it. You could do it now. And you can even do some of the platforming that they do here. You find alternate ways into the base, ladders. Trying to get to a specific spot here.
Through the floorboards, other ones won't. But this is just one version of, many possibilities. So here, the player will take a secondary route of navigation all the way up to the roof, and then from here, this allows them to be able to check out any of the AI, also be able to look at any of the interactables. In the future, if you got a good reputation, maybe you need to go and fix different items on the roof, or if you are there for nefarious means, then maybe you want to take out the power, and which will then kill the AA turrets, or will turn off the lights in the outpost.
So you can hear him here getting ahead of himself. I wish he wasn't. I wish engineering was ready when 4.0 dropped and it was implemented into these bases, because you can see they've got the little bits and pieces. You've got these solar panels. I'm sure many of you have seen these while you've been playing. You can see that there are little power conduits down attached to these solar panels. You can see one over here that an NPC is actually working on. And this has started to come in now. In the outposts in Pyro, you can actually disable the radio towers by just turning off the power on the tower, and they can't get dropship reinforcements to come in and fight you anymore. So this is starting to come into the game. But even back in 2021, this was something that they used as like a look at where the game is going kind of thing. And I do genuinely think that, like I said, since 21 even, they've gotten better at presenting stuff that's a little more close to actually being in the game. Specifically 23 and 24. Seem like they focus more on stuff that's at least a year, maybe a year and a half. Nah, forget it. I'm not even going to say that kind of stuff anymore, because 23 is still a freaking embarrassing failure in terms of shipping a lot of the stuff that was in there. A lot of it does come into the game, but we can go and look up just how much of this stuff... we can go look up just how much of this stuff is kind of still not been delivered. And engineering, base building, static server meshing is there. New quantum travel effects, water, fire simulation, ray tracing, audio simulation. There are definitely quite a few things that still need to be delivered. So I'm not going to say that they are night and day different than they used to be when it comes to this stuff, but they do get a little bit better at it. So all that being said, I think we're probably going to see some kind of a showcase like this, a demo that shows off the gameplay that they want us to be experiencing sometime in the next 18 months. And I would bet, I won't bet, I will hypothesize that this demo goes to Nyx. And we do get to see some level of resource management in a system that is not spaceship focused. So whether that's at a landing zone, which actually now that I think of, wouldn't be that crazy. Like if they went to Levski and they did some quick power management kind of stuff. Even looking at, no, we want navigating the verse, I believe. Navigating the universe. Even in this demo, they kind of tried to show this off here.
Which gives us the ability to salvage and repair while on foot. Okay, Bone, let's use the multi-tool to repair that pipe.
So this is kind of like the FPS repair gameplay that they've shown us, but this is also, I think, linking into resource management and that like the maintenance stuff you have to do depended on resource management to come into the game. So they've hinted at this kind of gameplay already in their previous demos, and I think this will probably be a focus this year because it is the biggest, most in-your-face feature that they've been working on, and they're getting fairly close to letting us see it. In fact, yeah, they always have updates on this. The engineering screen was then updated to show the rate of heat change for components and fixed various bugs. Yeah, I think a lot of this year is going to be looking at these kinds of things that we've seen in previous CitizenCons, whether they were in closed-off test segments or some kind of general showcase that didn't include other gameplay. I think they're going to show this stuff functioning in a game environment. At least that's what I would say is the most reliable thing they could do right now. People are still trying to figure out what is Star Citizen supposed to look like, even in a year from now, and this would be pretty important. Nyx Playground on tech preview? That would be cool, maybe. I don't think we'll get Nyx, but I do think that they're going to have it here. I would not be surprised if it's part of their showcase, their gameplay showcase. I actually would say that Nyx isn't necessarily just about making the game bigger. Nyx is going to be an interesting system to balance the economy with. Nyx is going to have the only landing zone that can house... Actually, no. The Hull C. Can the Hull C dock at Orison? Guess that would be 2 landing zones that have the Hull C. But as a separate star system, I do think that it gives us a lot more ability. If they can combine it with security and reputation improvements, it gives us more ability to actually spread the player base out. To play where you want to play. Instead of forcing everybody in Stanton. Unfortunately, that's just not going to expand the game as much as we would hope. As can be seen from Pyro, just bringing in a new star system doesn't necessarily mean they have all the missions and stuff connected to it. So I'm not saying it will be a great addition if that's true, but the possibility's there. All right, continuing on. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be about expectations and I'm just continuously getting distracted. I think there's also a pretty good chance we're going to see expanded FPS and radar. FPS scanning and radar. So the stuff that, once again, honestly, I think a lot of it's going to be actual in-game implementations of the stuff that we saw in CitizenCon 2023.
Zoom out a bit.
That might be the easiest way to lay it out. Actual maps. I don't know where FPS radar and scanning is here. Ah, here we go. This stuff.
I got you covered. You do it? Okay. Well done, Bone.
Simple feature, one that a lot of people are unhappy about because they feel it's wall hacks, but I think there are quite a few trade-offs that they're including in this system. For starters, there are armors and things that make you invisible to it. Base building is another thing that I'm thinking we are likely to see possibly being incorporated into what we already talked about with engineering and power management. Base building's been a pretty exciting topic, and I think a very big focus for them. I wouldn't necessarily say in development this year. It hasn't been obvious that they've been focusing on it, But as far as their philosophy goes and the way that they're talking about the game working, crafting and base building are obviously pretty important. So I think this is something they want to keep in people's minds. Not necessarily that it's releasing anytime soon, but I think we'll see something more polished of this coming up in this CitizenCon, in big part because they've actually also been talking about this here in the monthly reports. Let me see if I can find the new flight model. I do believe will show up. The new flight model could be combined with engineering to show off thruster damage and overheating, which is a big part of their new hover mode that they're working on. Shareable custom maps would be amazing. Good lord. Just like map markers. That's a thing that was in 2023 that never showed up. Custom map markers is exploration. That's all we really need to be able to do it as a job in the game. Pyro has a lot of space for exploration, but they don't know what it will be. Look, CIG has said many times what exploration will be. It's just that people aren't really accepting it. I 100% believe that if we see custom map markers in the game, you will see people starting groups of exploration. I mean, the people who've already started groups for exploration, you'll see them starting to make money and make a difference in the community. I know for a dang fact that that will be the first time our org, GII, will have something for explorers to do. We're going to have a channel on the Discord where exploration folks can come in and offer a location for something. And if somebody says they want the location, they can exchange the funds, give the marker to the other person, and they go and get the stuff, whatever's there. That could be a derelict ship. It could be a bunch of Quantanium to mine. It could be an outpost that has some loot in it that somebody's looking for. Exploration doesn't have to be finding planets and stars and stuff. Finding resources is part of it. I know people will call that prospecting. Okay. Still finding stuff. Sorry, I was supposed to be finding something here. July saw engineering gameplay enter tech preview preparation, with the devs moving the code into a new staging stream. So this was the big thing that tells us that engineering is definitely moving on in the actual game being built rather than just in some closed environment. The other thing here, though, that I wanted to show you, for crafting, the team continued reevaluated the scope of the first public release while the inventory UI concept shown recently on Star Citizen Live entered development. I actually don't think they're going to show us the UI stuff for the inventory. I don't think that would be a good idea. I think leaving that to show us when it's actually functional would be a better idea. But this is actually not the main point of crafting I wanted to find. This is the July update. Let me show you the June update. So in July, they were reevaluating how they could launch crafting, probably to be more in line with the way they're launching engineering, which is piecemeal. In June, still nothing about the crafting, so I must be thinking of May. Jeez, that was a while ago, huh? So in May, no, I'm not seeing this here. I'm not gonna try harder to find this. You'll just have to take my word for it. But they got to a point where they, I think, had crafting in like a playable form by the devs, which gave us an idea of how far it was in development. I think crafting is actually behind base building in development, just judging by how they're showing it off. But this CitizenCon will tell us pretty significantly one way or another. To be honest though, guys, I don't know. This whole video is basically me just saying this is the stuff that they've been working on recently, but genuinely I think their goal with this CitizenCon is just to set expectations for the next year and fill the space. I think if they could, they would completely skip the event, but it is a good event for kind of juicing hype a little bit, and kind of like setting better expectations. We will no doubt be talking about completely different features after CitizenCon than we are talking about before. Nobody's talking about hacking right now, but it very well might be shown at this CitizenCon because it is something that's been being worked on in the background. It's clearly functional in Squadron 42, and they've been working on it for a long freaking time. So that might also be something that they can show off. Hacking, base building. Let me go to the list of 1.0 features and just give you a quick read off here so I don't have to make this video so much longer. So like just looking at Star Citizen 1.0 and the features they have here, I think, Gumbo, I saw you say instancing. I don't know. I don't know, man. The dynamic server meshing going from what Benoit was saying in Squadron 42 or in Star Citizen Live didn't sound like it's far along enough for them to start presenting to us. Star Audio, I wouldn't really expect anything significant from that. Global Illumination, no. Starchitect, honestly, not really. I don't really expect anything significant from this. Planet Tech V5, Dynamic Weather, all of these things, if we are going to see them, I do expect them to be in a single showcase. Quantum Travel, same. Guild System, I bet you they're going to show us some factions and some people from those factions. If you go back to the different monthly reports over the last several months, this is May again. Let's go back to August real quick. Usually, you can find some interesting bits in the narrative parts here. Talking about, let's see. The team wrote and captured several new mission characters that will be making their debut later this year as they continue to focus on improving storylines across Star Citizen. This month's performance capture session also saw the return of an already released character to pick up some additional lines. I'm betting those people will show up at CitizenCon, one way or another. At least some of them. The CitizenCon this year being a 2-hour CitizenCon Direct is obviously less bombastic, less exciting, less of a party, less of a bunch of stuff going on, and more of just a straightforward delivery of news and what's coming up. And that's generally been what the YouTube channel has been this year as well. So when it comes down to it, expect not necessarily a patch report, but similar. A highlight on whatever is coming in the end of the year, November and December, and then a highlight on whatever they want to do next year. Combined with a couple of ships. They'll probably discuss a little bit of engine development stuff, Vulkan API, maybe a little bit of Star Audio, but I think mainly it's going to be focused around mechanics and gameplay that they have been starting to bring over from Squadron 42. So, same thing as the last couple years. All we can hope for is that they actually follow through with it. But that's my long, drawn-out expectations for CitizenCon. I'm going to put out a video on this that's a lot more concise and actually pre-prepared next week. I don't do none of these videos that we go over for these deep dives or these news drops that come onto Space Tomato 2 are prepared beforehand. So I'm going to do a lot more looking into this and give you a proper look into what I expect. But I would just keep your expectations relatively low in terms of like far future features. And just expect them to show like a showcase. This feels to me honestly like they're trying to do something a little more professional, like you would see at an E3 or something. Oh, last bit though that we should touch on was the quote from Jared here.
Out the with a map of the Odin system. Things about CitizenCon Direct. If you're a subscriber, but I do want to say if you are a he's never said those words before. That was for him. That went out at the end there about the Squadron 42 team still being heads down and working on that. I want to second the information there, and I want to star explain. I'm going to star explain there at CitizenCon Direct this year. So just in case there was any kind of people were like, I didn't quite understand the message, or maybe the message wasn't fully clear and whatnot. And if it wasn't, maybe that was on us. That team is heads down. We drew a line in the sand when we said 2026. I don't know if we're going to make it.
Okay, so going back to this quote, that part right there, I don't know if we're going to make it, obviously caused a lot of hubbub. There was a thread on Spectrum, which is like, this is 2 weeks ago, dude. I'm so behind. But either way, Squadron 42, I don't know if we're going to make it. Jared 2025. This has caused articles to come up from various publishers. This has caused new videos to pop up from people who don't normally cover Star Citizen. Generally, this was a bit of a lightning bolt. Jared, though, further clarified what he said here. He said, "Hi, Jared here. I'd like to include what else I said tonight. I said we drew a line in the sand. Now that we do everything we can, and now we have to do everything we can to make it. I said we're on track and that there's no mystery here, nothing to hide. I said that we just want to leave everyone heads down to focus on meeting that statement we gave last year. I said that when we get closer to the release, you'll see and hear lots more about Squadron 42. And I said that personally I cannot tell you what the future holds because quite honestly, that's a responsible answer for me to give with the way that video games are made. Not our video games, all video games. Which does include their video games. So no, I don't know the future, and I said as much as all. He said, please don't mistake my pragmatism for any commentary on the status of the game. I just try very, very hard to speak as deliberately and plainly as I can without embellishment or hyperbole. I meant what I said in the most literal manner possible, that I can't sit here and tell you what the future holds because in the entire history of video game development, who's ever been able to, that's all. If I didn't believe in this team and people within, I wouldn't still be here. It's clarifying, it's qualifying, it's not really adding anything to what he said. He's basically just saying, hey, I didn't just say only that he doesn't know if we're going to make it. But honestly, this is why people don't talk about the stuff they're working on. Okay? If anybody from Rockstar came out and said, I don't know if we're going to make it with Grand Theft Auto 6 next year, can you guys imagine? Oh my God. Could you imagine? Like, it's not a good idea to say. But when you're live on camera in these like chatting environments and you're just kind of kicking around and doing stuff, it's easy to say stuff like that. And that's the kind of thing that you get edited out maybe. But that's also one of the consequences of doing things openly like that. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but I would just keep in mind that like nothing's ever certain. They said 2026 for the release year, and it might not happen. And it would be incredibly embarrassing. It would be so embarrassing for them. And I think they know that. I think that's why they're trying so hard right now and not putting as much time into just about anything other than Squadron 42 and Star Citizen's content. Also, a ton of game companies have set dates and hit them. Yeah, but they basically hit them when they know that the game's done, right? Like, we still don't have a date for GTA 6. We don't have a date for... I could go down the list. There's a lot of stuff that we're hoping to see soon. And, like, a lot of these companies don't really give that date until they are super, super sure. And good on CIG for not giving a specific date, at least, yet. But it's why if you're making a game, it's just best to not talk about it. Unless your game depends on hype for funding. God, it's such a challenging place to be in. Anyways, that's my long and drawn out look at CitizenCon possibilities.